as a son who stood next to his own father's deathbed, trying to decide if the tubes and the needles no longer served a purpose. I don't presume to speak as a good person, except in the ontological sense of that word. Give me health and strength, we'll steal the rest. My principal credential.
But he has such terror and such a great desire. A member of an organization not named by me.
And by practice, a politician. Now, both those professions make me suspect in many quarters, including no better illustration of the public perception of how politicians unite their faith and their profession. Give me health and strength, we'll steal the rest. Give me health and strength, we'll steal the rest. Give me health and strength, we'll steal the rest.
A member of an organization not named by me. As a kid, good up, man. Alright, just up that needle.
Attached to the church, first by birth, then by choice, now by love. Who sins, regrets, struggles, worries, gets confused, and most of the time feels better.
And such a great desire.
But there is, of course, more for a non-believer or anything else you choose.
Such a great desire.
We know that the price of seeking to force our belief on others is that they might someday force their belief on us. This freedom is the fundamental strength of our unique experiment in government, in the complex interplay of forces and considerations that go into the making of our law and policies. Its preservation, the preservation of freedom, must be a pervasive and dominant concern. Affirms my legal right to argue that my religious belief would serve well as an article of our universal public morality. I may use the prescribed processes of government, the legislative and executive and judicial processes, to convince my fellow citizens, Jews and Protestants and Buddhists and non-believers, that what I propose is as beneficial for them as I believe it is for me. But it's not just parochial or narrowly sectarian, but fulfills a human desire for order, for peace, for justice, for kindness, for love, for any of the values that most of us agree are desirable, even apart from their specific religious base or context. I'm free to argue for a governmental policy for a nuclear freeze, not just to avoid sin, but because I think my democracy should regard it as a desirable goal. I can if I wish. He's my right to try. And theirs, and his. But should I? Is it helpful? Is it essential to human dignity? Would it promote harmony and understanding, or does it divide us so fundamentally that it threatens our ability to function as a pluralistic community? When should I argue to make value your morality, my rule of conduct, your limitation? What are the rules and policies that should influence the exercise of this right to argue and to promote? Now, I believe I have a salvific mission. I'll be branded a hypocrite if I don't, but must I agree with people with other religious beliefs face similar problems? Let me try some answers. The moral standards we maintain for everyone, not just the ones we insist on in our private lives, depends on a consensus view of right and wrong. The values derived from religious belief will not and should not be accepted as part of the public morality unless they are shared by the pluralistic community at large by consensus, country in law. But where would that leave the non-believers? Ultimately, therefore, what this means is that the question whether or not we admit religious values into our public affairs is too broad to yield to a single answer. Yes, we create our public morality through consensus, and in this country that consensus reflects to some extent the religious values of a great majority. But no, all religiously based values don't have an a priori place in our public morality. The community must decide what is being proposed would be better left to private discretion than public policy. whether it restricts freedoms, and if so, to what end, to whose benefit, whether it will produce a good or bad result, whether overall it will help the community or merely divide it. Now, the right answers to these terribly subtle and complex questions can be elusive. Some of the wrong answers, however, are quite clear. For example, there are those who say there is a simple answer to all these questions. They say that by history and by the practice of our people, we were intended from the beginning to be and should be today a country in law. But where would that leave the non-believers? I think it's already apparent that a good part of this nation understands, if only instinctively, that anything which seems to suggest that God favors a political party or the establishment of a state church is wrong and dangerous. And our democratic instinct teaches us these things are dangerous for both sides. Dangerous for the religious institution, dangerous for the rest of our society. Even a radically secular world must struggle with the questions of when life begins, by what authority. It too must decide what protection to extend to the helpless and the dying, to the aged and the unborn, for life in all of its phases.